One of the smoking guns of modern truth can be found once again when looking at the existing monolithic structures present in Egypt. Humanity, with all of its seemingly advanced technology, has been given the illusion of its greatness through accumulated ego. This illusion has blinded us from seeing what is right in front of our eyes all along. When we look at the largest created structures on Earth, like the Great Pyramids of Giza, we simply assume that we could also create them as well. Even today, with all of the high-tech modern machinery available to us, humans still could not build the pyramids of Egypt. Yet this concept is barely considered or even discussed openly. If the truth behind these incredibly detailed designs came out, it would change the way we view history forever. The advanced precision used to build the Great Pyramid of Khufu incorporates detailed measurements from which the Earth's size and shape can be perfectly calculated. What that means is that builders of this Great Pyramid knew the specific dimensions for the planet Earth. The Pyramid of Khufu is a literal representation of Earth itself, lining up to specific compass points like an enormous sundial. The precious ratios represented by the construction of the Pyramid of Khufu show a far advanced knowledge that could only have come from an intelligent extraterrestrial species. Yet, even in all of its grandeur, humanity is still far more willing to accept that the great accomplishments of the distant past were done by a nomadic tribe of humans utilizing nothing more than primitive tools. The largest structures ever made on Earth are sitting right in plain sight, and yet most of society ignores the importance of them completely. So much of human history and what was lost from it has been shrouded in mystery for hundreds of years. Entire advanced cultures seem to disappear overnight, which left much of the clues to their origins lost to history forever. Archaeologists are now finding significant evidence that is showing that the Earth suffered a series of devastating catastrophes, which may have included even a pole shift that nearly wiped out the entire human species. This evidence can be seen widely distributed in ice core samples and impacted soil layers all over the world, and is also referenced in numerous religious texts. The soil layers and ice cores describe to us either a large solar outburst or a series of comet strikes that significantly impacted the Earth during the Pleistocene era, roughly 12,800 years ago. The evidence for the magnitude of these extinction-level events can be seen clearly from within the impacted soil layers, which have shown high levels of nuclear glass, nanodiamonds, and thick ash in their deposits. So what could have caused these disasters? To me, the evidence points to one of two things: either a large solar outburst from the sun or a set of comet strikes. Irregardless, both of these events may have common influence from a mysterious planet located in the far outer reaches of the solar system, known as Planet X. This important new evidence shows a direct correlation back to the findings of Robert Harrington and Thomas Van Flandern around the influences that Planet X may have had on the Kuiper Belt long ago. According to their research, a new planet in our outer solar system called Planet X may periodically disrupt asteroids and comets in the Kuiper Belt, sending them hurling towards the Earth. This connection back to our hidden history is shedding much light for helping to piece together a plausible timeline that describes a mass extinction of biblical proportions. These new facts finally fit together to explain why so many advanced cultures from all over the world simply vanished. During this time period, the Earth was much colder and ice caps across our northern landmasses were up to 2 miles deep. It's hard to find and even wrap our heads around that staggering figure. The famous Empire State Building in New York City only measures about 1,200 feet tall. Try and imagine these enormous ice caps being 5 to 10 times that tall and covering almost entire continents. Ice core samples from Greenland show startling evidence that around 12,800 years ago, an asteroid or comet may have greatly impacted the planet. Debris from this comet or asteroid slammed into the Earth's ice caps and northern landmasses, resulting in trillions of gallons of water being released in a very short time. Envision a wave of water and ice sweeping across much of the northern hemisphere, devastating the human civilizations of megafauna living there. These cosmic impacts on the Earth spread a plume of ash and dust that led to a plunge in global temperatures. With this disastrous flood, with much of our knowledge and understanding of this time period, which is simply washed away in a torrent of boulders and meltwater. Dramatic scarring can still be seen all across the northern hemisphere, especially in locations such as Washington or Idaho in the United States, where mountainsides display the impressive ripple effects left behind from this turbulent river of ice and water. Across nearly every major culture on the planet, we see overwhelming evidence describing a massive flood that occurred throughout human history, including this powerful quote from Genesis chapter 7, verses 19 through 20. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all of the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. The most famous depiction of this great flood can be seen in the biblical story of Noah, whose name in the Sumerian king list was Ubaratutu. Instead of heavy rain, it was a wall of water from a sudden pole shift that caused the devastating extinction of mammals and human populations across the earth. Noah, who was also known as Atrahasis, was saved to protect the important Rh DNA within him and his family, and was guided secretly by his father, Enki. Instead of sending us back into an ice age, Earth experienced a runaway warming effect which lasted for thousands of years. This stunning and dramatic change to the climate was brought on by disastrous volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and entire land masses submerging beneath turbulent oceans. The combination of these two events would forever change the climate and species on the planet. What was a much colder place to survive in previously would lead to the warmer Holocene and a new chapter in mankind's history. Ice core samples from Greenland have given us a picture that leaves most climatologists scratching their heads in confusion without connecting this information with the ancient past. The extreme warming that occurred on Earth, coupled with soil layers showing thick volcanic ash laid down during the same time period, speaks volumes to these cosmic cataclysms and gravity disruptions of the planet. This new window into our past is only made possible by the brave researchers like Graham Hancock and Zecharia Sitchin, willing to find this evidence and challenge the entire narrative. The fact that our true history and unlocking the secrets of who we are is being found and told by only a handful of researchers and archaeologists shows you how controlled the view of history really is. If not for these brave minds, where would we end up? In the years leading up to the end of the Younger Dryas period, the Earth was warming at a rapid rate. Severe climate change triggered enormous wildfires that blotted out the sun and led to extensive droughts, creating hostile desert environments, wiping out the forests that previously existed there. The Earth's climate was transformed into a much warmer planet after these events. The few places that were spared of this cataclysm, including much of Africa, is the main reason why so many large animals still exist there today. These megafauna all over the northern hemisphere were wiped out, leaving only the smaller mammals who were able to seek shelter underground. Vast caverns of bones have been found all over the northern regions, showing the quickly shifting climate conditions that led to these mass extinctions of mammals. It was during this violent period coming out of the Younger Dryas that the philosopher Plato gives the same date for the famous lost city of Atlantis being destroyed by earthquakes and volcano eruptions, leading to the entire landmass submerging into rising oceans. This incredibly advanced culture, with everything they achieved, was lost into the sea and made into a fairy tale in modern times. Much of what we consider just silly stories may actually be recorded accounts by those trying to explain this tragedy and violent history preceding us. The Anunnaki who remained on the Earth survived the space cataclysms by taking shelter in enormous excavated cave networks or leaving the planet's orbit. In fact, regardless of the temperature profile found on the surface, it seems very evident that many of these Anunnaki prefer living underground. This continuously repetitive theme has come up over and over while researching and has strongly pointed to a clear indication for the presence of vast hidden cave networks all over the planet. As preposterous as this may sound, countless abandoned and underground complexes have already been found whose number is increasing with every new discovery made. The most famous of these discoveries occurred in Turkey in 1963, when a secret door in a wall revealed itself to be Derinkuyu, a colossal underground city that was estimated to have a capacity of more than 20,000 people. Further exploration of the site revealed a vast network of tunnels, which all interconnected to a lost underground world. Why would so much work have been done to live underground, and how would they have known what was coming from space? The answer to those questions points to the overwhelming evidence that those who dwelled within these caves simply was not human. The sheer scope of work involved in these elaborate projects would have been a monumental effort without some dire need for their construction. This important clue, connecting with the new evidence showing the devastating space impacts on the Earth at the time, begins to formulate a narrative for these forgotten visitors. The cave networks we have discovered today have been long abandoned and seem to have been only used to survive the extinction events of the past. With the technology to create these elaborate but temporary living quarters, it must be recognized that far more advanced cave networks were created as permanent dwellings for those who remained behind. The fate of humanity was left to a small and dwindled number of individuals, scattered across the warmer parts of our planet and mostly confined to Africa and parts of the Middle East. The entire human species nearly went extinct in the blink of an eye. With all of the past technology and knowledge totally lost to us, it truly was a reset button in our timeline. Mankind was back to being hunters and gatherers as we slowly worked our way up the evolutionary chain, completely unaware of anything preceding us. Taking advantage of this unique opportunity in our timeline, it was decided by some of the Anunnaki who were left to govern this planet that they would physiologically enslave humanity by creating an enormous system of control to keep the population suppressed and distracted from the truth. We are that consciously developing human species waking up at this moment to shockingly discover that we have been living in a matrix of slavery for thousands of years. This newfound level of awareness can be overwhelming and extremely shocking to realize. So many unknown questions remain still regarding this time period and fully understanding those who travel here. What we do know is found scattered in ancient texts and dusty scrolls describing an advanced group of beings known as the Anunnaki who ruled over Earth. Through a dark collaboration with other beings, the Enlil branch of the Anunnaki lords in charge of Earth secretly formed what would later become known as the 13 families of the Illuminati, or Cabal, thousands of years later. They allowed the implementation of a detailed system of conscious slavery that still firmly holds humanity in an illusion of reality. This complex system of suppressing consciousness is completely dependent on truth remaining hidden from our awareness. The direct influences from these visitors tampering in our history by the utilization of advanced manipulation techniques for the control of perceived reality is what has shaped our society to what it is today. Our timeline represents a coerced future that has been designed for us to live in. Evidence for their influence and purpose can be seen infused in the countless monolithic structures scattered throughout the ancient world from Central America to South Pacific. These ancient human cultures worshiped the Anunnaki, known to them as gods, for the important gifts they provided them which propelled their developing society. From the incredible mathematic precision behind the design of the pyramids to the crumbling ruins of ancient cities, these intrinsically important achievements from ancient cultures provide all the answers to the truth behind these visitors. The legacy they left behind has been passed down for centuries by native peoples through the use of storytelling and elaborate artwork describing those who came from the stars long ago. Factions from within each controlling group of the 13 bloodline families created a complex system to infiltrate all forms of finance energy, and politics in society. Control of these vital areas was important for maintaining social stability and order within the human farm. This agenda was coordinated and carried out by a small, loyal group of powerful family bloodline members living in ultimate secrecy alongside developing humans. Working up through the ranks of influencing and controlling powerful military societies like the Romans, they carried the symbol of Christianity, represented by the mighty Red Cross. Woo! A loyal group of bloodline families, backed by the authoritarian empire of the Christian Church, would establish what would later become known as the Knights Templar, whose legacy would be written about for ages. This unstoppable elite group of knights, claiming to be sent by God, devastated and murdered thousands in their obsession to reclaim the Holy Land. This ancient alliance and promise can still be seen today with the overwhelming military support given to the government of Israel. The 13 bloodline families of the Illuminati order carried out a complex agenda that is finally nearing its conclusion. It can be clearly seen on the back of an American dollar bill with the unfinished pyramid and the all-seeing eye. The important use of the number 13 can be seen cleverly hidden within symbols all across governments and found throughout printed currency. This reoccurring number represents the 13 families of the Illuminati who maintain and run every part of society. Some of this material can be hard to absorb or even to believe, but in many examples like this, the symbols are right out in the open, hiding in plain sight. These ancient symbols speak directly to the sinister agenda, which has been planned for all along with a one world government. This Orwellian agenda has been attempted over and over in our society and has been rejected when the population eventually discovers the truth in its control. Each time this attempt is made, the formula is modified in order to find a balance between perceived freedoms and those which are removed. That concludes the end of this section. Peace and blessings to you all.